Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel CCM Drummer. My name is Matthew Jackson. In today's video I'm going to continue in my lecture on the Alesis electronic drum set. This will be part 2. I do want to make a correction that I made on a mistake that I made in part 1. In part 1 I called this the Command Mesh. This is not the Command Mesh, this is the Command X Mesh. And the difference between the two is the X Mesh has an extra symbol. It has 3 symbols as opposed to just 2. So that's pretty much it. The control panel is basically the same features, same sounds, everything else is the same. Now, let me update you on the configuration of this kit. In part 1, you saw the control panel centered on the crossbar right here. But I had a little bit of problems because the hi-hat cable is the shortest cable of all the cables. The hi-hat cable is the shortest, and it could barely reach this hi-hat, and there was just too much tension on the cable, and sometimes it would come unplugged, so I decided to move it over here. Now the cool thing, another thing I established is that Alesis provides a bar with a clamp on it, and you put your snare drum on it, but it didn't work. That situation didn't work for me for ergonomic issues because I like to have my snare drum centered off the rack itself, and of course this pole didn't have the length for that, so I just ended up not using the pole. But I discovered I could put the pole high up on the left post and then just mount the control panel on it. So it works really well now, and there's more slack in the snare cable now. There's not any kind of tension there, so it works better, and there's enough slack in the snare cable to reach the snare, so it's all good. It works out really well. And I like having the control panel here as opposed to here, as the original designers have made it, because it'd be harder to see things at this angle, but this angle's a little better for me. Now I did have to lower the crossbars. Originally I had the clamp like this with the mount rod right here facing down, but because I lowered the crossbars in order to make room for the crossbar to put at the top here, I just went ahead and switched it and put it in the up position like that, and I'm mounting it like that to compensate for the height that I lost when I lowered the crossbars. So that is the difference between this setup and the setup that I had in part 1. Now, speaking of part 1, a gentleman by the name of Jonathan wrote me an email and responded to what I had talked about in part 1, so I'd like to read his email to you. Hey Matthew, so far you are the only user video of this set that I have seen. Were you planning on putting up any more videos, testing it out, or covering music on it? Well, this part 2 pretty much puts the testing out part to rest. But yes, I will also cover a song on this. My next project, I'll be using this kit to cover it on. So he says, I am considering purchasing it, but want to get more feedback since it is fairly new. I am planning on loading my own samples onto the set, so the preloaded sounds don't matter much, but I do have a few things I'd like to know. I'd like to know how does this kit perform with rolls? Are there any dropped notes? Can this handle a buzz roll? The answer to your question about the drop notes, no. There are no drop notes that I can tell. Let me go ahead and play a buzz roll for you. Now, when I do a buzz roll, I put my fingers on the stick. My drum instructor when I was a kid got on my case when I'd take my fingers off the stick and just use my thumb and index finger to do the buzz roll. But I notice I do better buzz rolls now with the fingers on the kit because my drum instructor is always on my case. So yeah, here's a single stroke roll. Here's a double stroke roll. Here's a paradiddle. Here's a 5-stroke roll. There's there's a 9-stroke roll. So there you go. Pretty much the same around the kit. So I hope that answers your question about the roll issue, Jonathan. Your next question, Jonathan's next question is, how capable is the bass drum, and can it could handle, well, the grammar's here, but basically it's saying, can it handle a double pedal? The answer to that question is yes, I think it can. If you look at the plate at the bottom where you mount the pedal to, it looks like it would be big enough where you could hook up a double pedal. Now, with the Alesis Command X Mesh, they do provide a drum pedal for that, so you don't have to use the pedal on your acoustic kit or import your own pedal. It comes with it. And the action on this pedal is very nice. It's very good. In fact, this pedal is better than the one on my acoustic kit. So, yeah, it's very good. Now, you notice that the single pedal centers up on the bass drum here. Now, one thing, if you do hook up a double pedal, you're going to want your left pedal to hit off to the side, off to the left of center, on the left. Watch how I hit it on the right, in between the rim and the center. See, you don't get any sound, barely. So you don't hear anything. But if you do the same thing on the left side, you get that sound. So if you do hook up a double pedal, make sure that the left pedal hits it right about here. And you've got to have your right pedal centered on the drum. Okay? Don't think that you can just center both pedals. So as long as you have that in mind, yeah, I think it would work for you. Now, some of these questions that Jonathan asked, you guys can go to Guitar Center or any music, a lot of your big music store chains, they'll actually set up a demo kit, and you can actually play it. And that will answer some of your questions there. His next question is there any ghosting, i.e. other triggers that go off while playing normally? The answer to that question is no. When you hit the snare, and that's it. It doesn't trigger any other apparatuses. So no, you won't have to worry about that. And then his last questions, how are the chokes? Are they consistent? Are there any delays? The chokes are not bad. Now, again, you'll never replace an acoustic kit. Acoustic kit is always going to be an acoustic kit. There's no substitute for an acoustic kit. But the electronic kits nowadays, they're coming pretty close. So let me show you, let me demonstrate the cymbal chokes. The only difference is on the choke, you have to grab it right here exactly on mid cymbal. If you grab it off to the side here, it won't choke. See? You have to do it dead center. So there's a very narrow window there for you to grab. So just make sure, you make sure you grab it dead center, and it will choke, and the reaction time is pretty good. So, and let me show the hi-hat choke. So, yeah, the reaction time's pretty good. So, yeah, I don't think you'll have too much of a problem with that. So, Jonathan, I hope that answers your question. Now, I'd like to move on and talk on the remainder of this time. I want to talk about the programming. In the product information documents that you read on the Command Mesh or the Command X Mesh, it'll tell you that the drums has over 600 sounds. The set itself has over 600 sounds. And, that sounds pretty daunting. I'm going to 600 sounds. Wow, okay, whatever. But here what I did is I broke all those 600 sounds down for you. Really, on the Command X Mesh, on the model that I have. Now the model that I have for the control panel is the firmware LDLL V1.0.1. That's the version that I have. So on that version, you actually have 643 different sounds. Okay, so Now, one thing I want to make a note of is that the drums, each apparatus has what is called, it's called a dual zone, meaning that you could put two voices on one apparatus. So for example, the drum itself has a snare drum sound that I programmed into it. But then, if you hit the rim, I programmed a sound for that. I programmed in a timbale sound. And then for the left tom, you have your tom sound. And then I programmed a high timbale sound for that. And then I put a splash cymbal on the rim of the right tom. And of course you got your... And then I put my cross stick on the rim of the floor tom. So you can do ballads. The one thing I forgot to mention earlier is that this does have a dynamic range. For instance, you can hit the snare soft and you get a soft sound. Or if you hit it hard, you get a louder sound, just like you would if you were hitting an acoustic kit. And I know the earlier models of electronic drum sets did not have that technology available in the early 80s or late 70s when electronic drum kits came out. Back then, they were so primitive that if you barely hit the drum, you got the same volume as if you had whacked it real hard. Yeah, electronic drums today are more touch sensitive. So yeah, I've got my cross stick here as opposed to on the rim, so you can play the ballads. Or if you want to rock out, you got that option. So now, let's get back to the snare sounds, or I'm sorry, the drum sounds. The first 27 sounds, 1 through 27, are all kick sounds. So when you program your kick, you've got 27 different types of sounds to choose from that's pre-programmed into this control panel. And then you have 59 snare sounds, 19 cross stick sounds. So what I did is when I programmed my kick, I went through all 27 sounds and picked the best one. Same thing with the snare and the cross stick. You only have one brush sound, snare brush. You only got one. So yeah, if you ever play a jazzy type song where it calls for brushes, sound 105, that's the one you're going to want. And then you have up to 177 tom sounds, and then 51 ride cymbal, 67 crash cymbals. Now, on my case, what I did is I picked crash cymbal 337. And because of all the crash cymbal sounds, that sounds the coolest. Uh-oh. Lost my amp here. So what I did is I like the 337. I like the texture of it so much that I decided to have the left crash have the same texture. The only difference is I lowered the pitch on this one by 2 notches. So on each of these sounds that you pick, you can adjust the pitch. So it sounds like 2 different cymbal sounds, but it's really the same texture. But I like the texture. And then of course, oh yeah, on my other drum set, I programmed, okay, I have 2 just kit sounds, 1 and 2. This is the second one. I programmed the rim here to have a splash sound because I need a splash cymbal in this project that I'm working on. So when I hit the splash, I'm just going to hit the rim. Now, on the other drums, on my second sound, I went ahead and gave the rim sound the same sound that I'd give the tom sound. So that way, if you don't need those extra sounds, then go ahead and program your rims to have the same sound as your drum. So that way, if you make a mistake and don't hit your drum and accidentally hit the rim, you're not going to lose anything or go with a different sound. But, so yeah, I did that. So anyway, back to this chart here. And I'll hold this so y'all can freeze frame it and you can look at the different sounds. But yeah, you got to segregate all those sounds into different categories. You got 2 China crash sounds, you got 2 splash sounds, 35 hi-hat sounds. The percussion, you got 71 of them. That includes timbales, congas, and bongos. So you got all kinds of, and I think go-go bells, I think cowbells are in there as well. And then of course you got the marimba, vibraphone, timpani, got some exotic sounds, 34 exotic sounds, that's the weird stuff. And then you got 13 extra hi-hat sounds. So that is all my time for this session. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to send me an email or put a comment in the comments line. I appreciate the feedback. Until next time, thank you and God bless.